Well, hello, friends. David Vos here. Boy, it's just beautiful in Oklahoma today. It's a little cloudy and cooled down just a bit. Still kind of hot, but it's lovely. Be out here in the beautiful sunshine. I'm out here in the park, sitting at a picnic table, talking to you guys. I hope you're all having a great day. You know, I want to get into a video today that's probably going to be maybe one of the most interesting videos we've done in a while. And maybe, it goes hand in hand with the video we did yesterday. Because we were talking about, Jesus, he's Osiris, the great Pharaoh, and all of these teachings that come from the ancient esoteric wisdom and from the ancient Egypt. How beautiful, how wonderful to see the synchronicity of all of this information that we never knew. Ha! Oh my goodness, it's just, it seems that the floodwaters have been opened. The gates have been opened. And the nourishing waters of life are just coming down over the crest, through the valley. Coming down to the valley to open up the production of the fields. We're going to have a bounty. We're going to have, that analogy, why is it so important to have living waters? What is that? Why is it living waters? And what kind of water's not living? There's the analogy, well, there's dead waters, like stagnant. We don't want that. It smells, it's putrid, it doesn't taste good, and it'll kill you. There's bacteria that's boiling in there, and it's turned to some kind of poison. It's rank. But, it's funny how all of these things, language is beautiful how it works, because it's not only does it cause death, it smells like death, but it is death. Because the living waters, not only they're alive, but they give you life. You drink them and they give you life. So there's layers upon layers of meaning in every word, let alone the parable themselves. What we're going to find out today is that these parables about, the book of Revelation, which is, the book of Revelation, we talk about how the Bible is a Reader's Digest form of all the esoteric wisdom and ancient mythologies and stuff around the world. They were meant to be the ones that we would follow. Because we're, a lot of the stuff that we had, the Sumerian tablets, the Egyptian hieroglyphs, we didn't even understand Egyptian. It was a dead language. Even Koine Greek, not very long ago, was a dead language. We had to rely upon the translators. So, we had to have some way to, not only did we carry the New Testament down by translating it, but it's that way with the esoteric wisdom itself, the teachings within them. We didn't know for sure what they were, the truth. We just had the parables, and we hoped that they were translated correctly. But then when we started digging these other things up, we started digging up the Sumerian tablets a couple of hundred years ago, and Akkadian and Babylonian, and, it wasn't until recently we began to even decipher the hieroglyphs. In the days of Joseph Smith, that he interpreted and translated the hieroglyphs that was delivered to him by divine providence. Joseph Smith received some tablets, some ancient parchments, and he translated that, and today you'll find that in the book called The Pearl of Great Price, translated from an ancient scroll from Egypt, from hieroglyphs. And it's about Abraham, because as we said, how wouldn't Joseph Smith have known back in 1830 as a young man? Even the greatest scholars and translators couldn't understand this. How would he have known? My goodness, today we realize, after 200 years of these scholars in their white robes and their PhDs, and after finding the the Rosetta Stone, which was able to decipher the information because it had the Egyptian hieroglyphs alongside the interpretations in Greek and Latin, so that we could compare and find out what this ancient hieroglyphs meant. But it turns out that, yeah, what Joseph Smith said about the tablets being written in a kind of Hebrew mixed with Greek letters, that's how he described it. Because in those days, they weren't talking about the Phoenician or the ancient Phoenician texts. But it was a perfect way to describe it. If you look on the stones that you'll find here in New Mexico, in the paleographic, they call it paleographic Hebrew. Well, it was paleographic because it was of that time and era, but it's not the exact same Hebrew. It has Greek letters thrown in. It's kind of Phoenician or something, or ancient, some sort of ancient Middle Eastern language, very similar to the Egyptian. But Joseph Smith translated it, and he says that in that book, it talked about a star that was above all the other stars. And he said that star had a name, and its name was Kolob. And for 200 years or almost, people have said, oh, Joseph Smith was such a character. Abraham wasn't the Pharaoh. Yeah, he was. He was. He was the Pharaoh. And his son Isaac was a Pharaoh, and Jacob was a Pharaoh, and Joseph was a Pharaoh, and Moses was a Pharaoh. And they dwelt and sojourned for 500 years in the land of Egypt. And Jesus was in the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the pharaohs. Just as Joseph married the daughter of On, or Anu. And so they laughed at him and said, no, Abraham couldn't be a pharaoh. And they said, what is this Kolob? We don't know what Kolob means. Well, that's ridiculous. The guy's an idiot. What star that every other star revolves around? They couldn't figure it out. Well, that star is the North Star. The whole heavens revolves around that. They said, well, see how stupid he was? Everybody knows that the whole heavens revolves around Polaris, not Kolob. Oh, but you see, it was the Arabians, and the Islamic peoples that for a long time was studying astrology, while the Christians in Europe had quit because they weren't allowed to by the Pope. That was pagan, that was false. So over there in the Islamic countries, they continued to map the stars and get into astronomy, ancient sciences. They still did that in Spain because that wasn't ruled by the Catholic Church until 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But so in Spain and Muslim countries, they were still studying from the libraries. One of the only libraries which is still intact was the one up in Constantinople that was still in control, that the Islam was and the Muslims were still in control of, in the Middle East. So they had some access to ancient tablets in astronomy. And so in the Islamic or the Arabic tongue, they called the North Star, not Polaris, but another star that had been the North Star a couple of thousand years before. And they called that star Kolob. Now, how could Joseph Smith have known that? Because it seems that kind of got lost in the shuffle. I don't think Mormons even understand what Kolob means. People are saying, what does that mean? Oh, the prophet says that God dwells on a planet called Kolob. Well, it was a star. And it's a star that we revolve around. And it's not there. It hasn't been there for thousands of years. But it is the original northern star, where the Greeks talk about the father of the gods dwelling. It was the land of the immortal ones because it never went down over the horizon, stayed up in the north. And of course there were the two serpents that guarded the way to the trees of life and to heaven. That's where Anu dwelt. And the Greeks had a different name. But how did Joseph Smith know this? Indeed, how did he know that there was stars that revolve around other stars, and they revolve around other stars, and that around others until you get to the highest, where everything revolves. But you see, of course, even beyond that, our galaxy itself revolves around perhaps something else in the universe. And so, again, Joseph Smith said, God is now as we will become. And God once was as we are now. Because he lives in a world where there's an ever progressiveness. He dwells in unapproachable light, the New Testament says. But all this ancient knowledge was hidden, and it was written down in the symbols. But Christians never knew that these symbols, astrology, the stars, the astrology, or the zodiac, zoo, which is an animal zoo that's in the sky, they thought it was cartoons. They thought it was sorcery. They thought it was poppycock and magic. Of course, they would have to say that the book of Revelation is magic and childish and full of symbols. It's got all the same symbols in it. The dragon and the woman, the virgin. You know, and then you got religions coming up last 100 years like Jehovah's Witnesses and Adventists. Oh, there's no virgin. Why, that's pagan. That's evil. That's sorcery. That's part of the ancient wisdom. And of course, they believed in an underworld. They believed in progression and reincarnation, and people died and they came back to life. And the gods that were in and around, the 12 gods that went around and around and around, they all died. They went over the horizon and they were gone for 6 months. They'd come back up. And there were all these cycles. So the whole thing starts with the beginning of spring. As we were saying the other day, spring is the man, the Aryan man. Orion, Osiris. Born of the Virgin. Horus is born of the Virgin, of Osiris and the Virgin. But you see, all of these deities were born. Even, all 12 of these deities. And there's all these mysteries that are in the stars. I mean, when Zeus became the father of the gods and had the great battle and won and took the Titans and threw them into hell, he opened up hell and brought some out. Well, that's because when winter is no more, then the gods that were banished down there in the dark winter came up on the horizon, and they rose and they conquered death. And this was the story of Osiris, or the story that's in the New Testament of Lazarus. Lazarus. So, we had no idea that the Bible was a story. But even those who understand that it's a story, it's the same story, the Greek mythology, the Sumerian tablets, the Babylonian stories, the creation myths, which aren't myths, but they're parables and symbols of the ancient esoteric wisdom. And so, we had no idea. Even astronomers and astrologers probably don't realize. I mean, I suppose some astronomers and, those who study astrology and the zodiac, they probably think it's just a story. Doesn't mean anything. Ovid and, Pliny, Plutarch, these guys were just poets. They weren't, Dante's Inferno. This was just a story. It was a drama. Just like Arthur and the Round Table. That was a story. No, that's the same thing as Ovid and Plutarch and these great poets. It's about Arthur. R is light. And the Round Table, just like the Round Table of Jesus and his 12 disciples. Isn't this interesting? You have the 12 knights sitting around the round table. Around the sun, Arthur. Around Eos, in capital letters in Greek, I-H-S, Isis, Horus, and Zeb. This is an anagram for the Great Trinity. And Christianity is oblivious, but so is the astrologers and the astronomers and the scientists. Why, Einstein would probably roll over in his grave, except he might not even be in his grave. Because according to the ancient ones, for those who would build such bombs, such as a nuclear weapon, they might have to spend a while down in the hells, chased by the hounds of hell. What are the hounds of hell? You ever heard these stories? We just talked about a story yesterday about, hitting the bullseye. How many people go and they say, boy, I'm going to hit the bullseye? They're archers. See if you can hit the bullseye. See if you can hit the bullseye. What are you talking about, the bullseye? I used to think when I was a kid that it was maybe the bullseye, or the center. The center sounded like an eye, right? Looked like an eye. So I thought, okay, they must have had a round dartboard, and they thought the center looked like an eye. But no. It was Orion the hunter who was pulling back his bow, trying to hit the bull, Taurus. This is astrology. So not only do we have to understand what it's talking about, all of this stuff, even all the rest of the Bible, like Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, and people in Sacred Names movement, and these people, we're under the law of Moses, right? And the hell is not anything. It's just non-existence. When you die, that's it. You don't have any consciousness. Well, what is hell in Greek? Oh, well, there they torture them down in the river Styx. You got to cross the river Styx. You got to have a coin. You got to pay. What is Jesus talking about when he says you'll not come out of Hades unless you pay the uttermost farthing, the last penny? If it's not a real place, then how are you going to pay? If you're not a real person who's immortal and you're not going to suffer, then why would you want out? And why would it be so important to get out of there that you got to pay a price? And who's going to pay? And what's this paying? And if the Greeks are talking about something that's abomination, then why is Jesus talking about it and you don't believe in it? And yet you say you believe in Jesus. And why is Jesus talking about Tartarus if he was just using the Greek words generically, like he didn't really believe in the Greek teachings, but he's just he calls his father Uranus. But he doesn't really believe in Uranus, the father of the gods, of course. That would be silly. Let's go back to the Hebrew Sheol. Of course, that's probably more accurate. Yeah, Sheol is an equivalent of Hades. And there was a god over Hades who had the key to the pit. And that's in the book of Revelation, my friend. And he's called Abaddon. Abi, father, Adon, Adonai. That's your God Yahweh, who calls himself Adonai hundreds of times in the Old Testament. And he has the key to death and Hades, according to Christ. Because he's accusing your soul day and night. Yeah, just like Hades or Pluto, Apollio or Apollyon. And the Latins call him Pluto. Well, that's taken from the Sumerian Apollos. And then in Greek it's Apollyon. See, that's the sun when it goes out and it goes down to the bottom of the wheel. And it has to overcome and conquer. But you see, people trying to understand the Bible never once thought to possibly just take a look and see if they could understand these symbols by using their brain and looking at ancient scripture and understanding why the Jews wrote what they wrote. And why in the world would anybody think that Jesus would write that the New Testament would be written in Greek, but it didn't mean anything it was talking about? Because like I said, if you're just going to say, oh, Hades is just a generic term for Sheol, and Sheol doesn't have layers, because if it's death, right? The dead are dead. That can't be no layers. You're either unconscious or you're not unconscious. There's no layers, right? If it means unconsciousness, right? According to Jehovah's Witnesses. It would just be one realm of the dead. It couldn't be anything more than that, because you're all dead. But then no, in Hades there's two realms. The Elysian fields, where the good people went. And then there was the lower realm, where there was fire. You had to cross the river and pay the ferry. Well, why did Jesus say that the rich man Lazarus went to hell and was buried and went to hell? And in hell, in the flames of fire, he was being tortured. And he said to, please go and dip your finger in some water and give me a drop of water on my tongue. I'm just tortured in these flames. And then Jesus says that when people die, he says there's a line that crosses it, a chasm. Is that the river Styx? I don't know. But, there's a river, there's a chasm, a gorge. And those on one side can't cross over to the other side. Those in the place where they're having a meal with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the great table in the banquet, they're not allowed to go across the gorge to get on the other side where they're being tortured in the flames. Huh? Oh, Jesus, you just don't know what you're talking about. My goodness, what are you talking about? Some kind of Greek pagan, idolatrous, evil crap? How is it that they can divorce themselves from what Jesus says but believe in Jesus? Jesus described exactly the story, the Greek mythology, the Sumerian, Egyptian. Where originated was there in Egypt. The same esoteric wisdom that all the nations and worlds believed in. So, if you're going to start to open your eyes and realize what all this means and what all this is, you start to realize that, oh, okay. So, when you die, what does that mean? Okay, well, we've got the horizon, and the sun goes down over the horizon and it dies. And it wakes up in the morning. Oh, resurrection! Oh, isn't that what we believe as Christians? Horus on the horizon. He's rising on the hor, or the light, the or. The virgin birth, Isis. Oh, that's pagan, Dave. Stop it. Okay. Maybe you should stop it, because maybe you should really stop it and stop and listen and think about what you're doing. There can't be a Tartarus and the Titans who were thrown into Tartarus. I mean, in the Greek, it's the Titans, the giants that were thrown into Tartarus, right? But in the Apostle Peter's words, it was the angels who sinned who were thrown into Tartarus, a pit. They were chained in the pit of Tartarus with great chains. And that's exactly what it says in the Greek and the Sumerian and the Egyptian. Wake up, Jehovah's Witnesses. Wake up, Seventh-day Adventists. And you Baptists, you're not far behind, because you're not listening either. Okay, you've been dumbed down by the apostasy. You must go back in the ancient wisdom and read this information and figure it out, because you see, just like the story, everything in the Bible is related to this. I mean, we talk about, he's a sinner. Oh, he's a sinner. Oh, he's going to hell. What is hell? Well, we just described hell. Okay. But that's not the whole story. Not according to the Greeks or the Sumerians or the Egyptians. And not according to the New Testament. Not according to Jesus. You can get out of there. You pay the penny. You get the ferry. And you cross over. Right? The crossing. The planet of the crossing. And what is that? Well, it's the crossing of the elliptical. Right? When you cross over in spring. And as we said, Orion is the first month. And he's holding in his hand the cross. And there's some fertility symbols there. The circle is the woman, the phallic symbol, and the cross. That whole thing is a symbol. Probably one of the greatest symbols. Boy, if you wanted to wear one around your neck, I mean, I wouldn't idolatrize or anything like that. But there's nothing wrong with symbols, friends. Symbols express, like early Christians who wore fish. That's another beautiful symbol. Because it expresses something. It's like speech. It's symbolism. It's language. It's parables. Jesus spoke with parables. You have a favorite color? Oh, you idolatrous person, you. Shouldn't be wearing colors. I guess we should just run around naked and shave our head bald. And well, I guess you can't do that either, because if you run around naked, you'd be shameful. So if you put clothes on, I guess, according to them, if you're going to be righteous, you better make sure it's a white robe. No frills, no jewelry. Oh, isn't that weird? They wore jewelry in the Old Testament too. Well, I guess we're just going to have to realize that the stuff that we were told as, you know, good old pilgrims that come over here to flee the persecution, to get away from the Catholic Church, the stuff that we were told was wrong. And we didn't know it, but we went back to the old covenant. And we thought we would get saved by going back to the old covenant instead of realizing what the new covenant was and realizing that was never our Father. That was never our religion. And we were never of that group of people down there at the bottom of the wheel, laboring under sin and under the illusion, for their God is the devil. But we were from above. Our Father was from above. Anu. We were Christians. We were the pagans, the nations that were allowed into the one kingdom. But you see, it's funny because the one tree that we think as Christians that we're just getting grafted in, right? Well, they're the real root. Well, the root isn't that one tribe, my friends. The root is Adam, the father of all, and Abraham. But you see, according to the Apostle Paul, it's the Jews who were blinded, not the Gentiles. And they were blinded in part until the Gentiles be fully come in. And then all Israel will be saved. Because we're Israel, all Israel. You ever read that and wondered what the heck Paul was talking about? How is it Gentiles come in and then all Israel saved? Only until the Gentiles come in and then all Israel saved. Because Gentile doesn't mean heathen, like you've been told. It means the other nations, the 10 lost tribes. I was sent only unto the lost tribes of Israel, Jesus said. Now go find them. Go find my sheep. I have other sheep which are not of this fold. They also I will bring. There will be one fold and one shepherd. So the whole world is Israel. There's no room for racism, friends. None. Jesus loved everybody. But, so the whole Greek language, and this is the New Testament. The Textus Receptus, the holy Textus Receptus that was carried down through the Protestants, which were the Waldensians, the Cathars, the Gnostics. Yeah, that's the ones. Down through Wycliffe and through Luther. And yeah, the King James, which followed the holy Textus Receptus, which is only the Greek, not the Latin Vulgate that Jerome translated from the Latin Vulgate, which was corrupted to try and prop up a false, wicked system of popery. So, this whole Greek language, this holy Textus Receptus, these stories were the Greek stories. You know, the Dardanes, that is the tribe of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah. They were a line of Israel that came out of Egypt. They came on boats and they built Troy, and they went up to Ireland and built the Irish. And they went to Africa and made the African peoples, and to Japan and to China and to America, to the North Americans, made the Native Americans here, and the Brazilians, and the people all around the world, all the tribes of the world. But in this Greek, that what we're using, the excerpt, the Reader's Digest excerpt to all the ancient esoteric wisdom, in a little excerpt, the little Bible, 66 books, which is, it's 66 for a reason, because you need to know that it's not 7, it's not complete. It won't be complete until, as Joseph Smith said, the regathering of the tribes, which they're all going to bring their documents with them. They're going to be bringing them up out of the earth. They'll be whispering from the ground, according to the book of Isaiah and the prophet Joseph Smith. And those ancient peoples, all of their testimonies will agree, and we'll all see eye to eye when he brings back Zion, my friends. And that's going to be here on the North American continent, in the land of Ande, Ammon, Adam on the Ammon. The land where Adam dwelt before the flood. And so the Greek there, it's talking about Orion the hunter. That's part of their psyche. That's what they believed in. He started the summer or the spring off with his bow, and he had his two dogs, which is, we call it the dog star, Sirius. And there are Sirius A and Sirius B and Sirius C. And there are three dogs that they're the hounds of hell. Because that region is in the southern region, Sirius and Orion, and you keep going down the corridors of the regions of hell until you get all the way down to the seven sisters, the Pleiades. And you know why they're there? Because they're bound in hell. And you know why Orion has got his bow and he's fighting the bull and he hits the bull's eye? And he's got his dogs next to him that are guarding. The two dogs, they guard the gates of hell. Sirius is the gates of hell. That's looking down the corridor. And there's 9 chambers. Because Inanna, she goes down into hell. And she goes down through the 9 stages. And she loses a part of herself at every stage until she finally gets to the 9th place where she's trapped. And Damuzi has to come and save her. And that's Christ. That's the story of Jesus Christ. He will go into hell and bring back his bride. And so, this is a terrible place. Because, once you get down there, you got to cross the river Styx. Right? Or the gorge that no one can pass that Jesus talks about, that separates the place of suffering from paradise. This is true. It's what Jesus taught us. You're not going to get out of there unless you pay the price. What's the price? Oh, buddy, that's what the symbolisms reveal, and was revealed once and for all by the holy prophets and apostles, by Jesus Christ. And that is that Jesus himself, the Christ, that inner spiritual powerful man, died and went down into the lower carnal realms. All the way down to this place where they got commandments. And you got to pay a price, which is your life. You never come out of there. We learn by the things in which we suffer. And Jesus is God. He didn't have to come here. But he came here to save the ego. To save his brothers in the great congregation. The congregation, there's 7 congregations, or the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. And that's why, if you look down that corridor, you go all the way, you see Aldebaran, and you see Alcyone, which is in the middle of the 7 sisters. And that Alcyone is where we all began. The place of chaos, the deepest hell, where we all started looking down the corridors as we were in our ancestral memory, the stuff that we had to overcome. And we couldn't get out of there. We were struggling. Going through the zoology at the bottom of the wheel, right? Down in hell, in the Sheol, down the corridor. Struggling with the monster that we were wrestling with. Hercules had to go down there and wrestle with the great serpent. That's Jesus. Yeah, Jason and the Argonauts. Jason is Iasun, Isun, Isu, or Isus, depending on the tense of the verb. So Jason is just another way of spelling in English Isu, which means the son of Isis. And he's the great hero. He's the one who came to the world to save your soul. Remember what Jesus said. He says, as he was about to leave the earth, because he was ascending, and he says, touch me not, for I have not yet ascended into my God, my Father, and your God, and your Father. But as he went up into the air, they watched him go into the air. He evidently like a tractor beam. He just lifting off the earth up into the air. And they watched him go into the clouds, it says, using the word clouds. I guess it was a cloudy day. Or was it? Or are they trying to tell us something else? There was something in the sky He didn't just go up into the blue till he went out of sight, but he went into a cloud, obscured their vision. And the angel came down and says, "Why keep ye looking into heaven? For he will come in like manner as you've seen him go." Now that's pretty literal. Remember how we said everything's literal? There's all these facets to the illustrations. Because if you're going to say that Jesus is the bread of life, not to live by every word that, or by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of the Lord, what you're saying is that, yeah, on earth, in the physical world, bread is the staff of life. That's how you live, by eating bread. And bread is not wheat, as we said in that video the other day. It's beans and nuts and all of the things that they mesh together, that the Native Americans and the native peoples all around the world used to mesh together and make a loaf. It wasn't wheat. But Jesus is the bread of life because he's our spiritual food. Now, it's eternal. We live forever by eating that bread. So it's much better. But that parable wouldn't work if there wasn't some sort of physical, literal food. Because it wouldn't make any sense. He's talking about bread. What's bread? I don't know what you're talking about. I can't relate because I don't know what bread is. Okay, now I know what bread is. It's food. It keeps me alive. Oh, now I get it. Jesus is going to keep me alive spiritually forever. It's a better food, made of a different subtle substance that's refined and pure. Spiritual food. I get it. So I understand from the parable the point. So in the sense of what the reality is we're not going to get saved until we recognize not some guy named Jesus, but that Christ within you. Your own spiritual power. Because we were in Christ from the founding of the world. We have the same. We're made in his image. We're brothers. So at the same time that there was a literal Jesus, there couldn't be a spiritual Jesus if there wasn't a literal one. There can't be a spiritual food if there wasn't literal food. You wouldn't understand what I was talking about. And so because there was a man, a literal man who was the firstborn among many brethren and partook of flesh and blood as did his brethren, because we have a story, a history, who walked this earth and taught his people and loved us and showed us the way. Now we understand what we can be like, what we can do, and what we can succeed in, and how to do it. So by the same token, even though Christ is going to be manifest in us, when he stands at the door is the door of your temple. You have a temple. You're the temple of the living God. And so ultimately, the final meaning of Scripture is spiritual. That's the most important part. That Christ is in you. This body is just a temple. And the veil that's over your heart is the ignorance. And there's that showbread that you eat. And the candles that we talked about, which are the 7 chakras. But you know what? There's also a literal interpretation. If Jesus was a literal man, then he literally went somewhere. Didn't he? He's not here. He's not on the earth. And according to that scripture, he was taken up from the earth, and he shall return in the same manner in which he arose. In the clouds of heaven. Well, Jesus, according to the book of Revelation, it says that there's this being called Abaddon, or Father Adonai, who has the keys. In Greek, he's Hades, in Latin, it's Pluto, and he's got the key of the bottomless pit. Remember, Poseidon has a trident. Well, Zeus had a thunderbolt. Okay? Well, Jesus went down into hell and conquered the principalities, the powers, and the dominions, and nailed the law to the cross and paid the price. He took that guy that was ferrying the people across the river Styx, and he got him, and he says, "Listen, buddy, it's free now. I paid the price for everybody." And it says he even went and preached to the spirits that were in prison. But it's a real place, and he'll return in a real manner, as you saw him go. And he has the key. Who's got the key? Well, it used to be Hades. But see, Jesus is going to conquer, and he's going to rise. A virgin's going to give birth to a son. And that son, the Son of God, who is beloved of the Father, is going to go down into the water, the Jordan, Iridanus, Ordan. And he's going to go down. Jesus said, if you want to become, see, so you can see, because the man was born blind. He says, what am I going to do? You know, well, he says, get baptized in the River Jordan 7 times. 7 meaning over and over and over and over until you get to the rest, till you finish it, till you complete. How many times? 70 times 7. That's how many times you forgive. Because our Father in heaven does. What does that mean? It means we all got to go down through the river Styx 7 times. Inanna went down into the depths of hell through the 9 stages, and she was lost. But Jesus had to go down. In that story, it's Tammuz. Jesus had to go down there. In Jason the Argonaut story, remember Jason went down there to save his bride, Andromeda, right? And so in this story, in the Greek story, what we have is we've got the Aryan man, the spiritual man, who's fighting that bull that's got control of the church. And that's a long ways. You're looking back down the corridor through the 9 stages. And the hounds of hell are protecting the path so that nobody can get out. And so in that New Testament, it says that sin is a Greek word. And it means to miss the mark. Oh, there's another one of those words. What does it mean? Oh, it means you're a bad person. Oh, it means that, you're unworthy. No, that's not what it means. That's what people think it means because that's what they were told. But that's not what it means in the Greek, because you've never really understood the Greek mythology. You never understood the story. The story is that you got to hit the mark. You're an archer. You're the Aryan man. The spiritual person within you can do it. You pull back your bow and boo, you hit him right in the bull's eye. And that is perfection. That is conquering. You are the great hunter. You got your sword and your shield of faith, your helmet of salvation. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, my friends. Jesus went down in there and he conquers the bull, and he delivers his bride and all the maidens, right? The 10 virgins that went out to meet the bridegroom. And of course there's some others. There's the Heides that are just off to the, east a little bit from the Pleiades. They're also Atlas's daughters that got stuck down in there. And of course he's delivering them too. Jesus is going down into that hell, down towards the southern realm. And as far opposite of that southern realm is this Kolob, where our Father in heaven sits. And that's our destiny, because when Jesus returns, he's coming from the sky up out of hell. And then he's going to ascend and back all the way up. And in the star, Jesus is Polaris. And the Chinese, Polaris is the emperor's seat. And in the Arabic, he is the phoenix. Polaris is the phoenix bird that rises up out of the ashes and rules for 1,000 years. That's Polaris, the son of Cephas, who ruled on Kolob. But down in the far, far south is hell. And there we go from Sirius to Aldebaran to Orion, Kitaki, Orion's belt, and then to, it goes from Sirius to Orion to Aldebaran to Alcyone, which is the central star that the Pleiades go around. And that is our deepest past. Jesus had to go back into the past and change the outcome. He had to go down into hell in the spirit and atone for all the wrongs that has been done. And he's going to come back up out of there. He's got the key. He's got the sword. He's got the bow. But the one thing he has is the ankh. If you look in Orion's hand, or Osiris's hand, he's got the key. And that key is the key of David, that he can open, that no man may shut. He can bind on earth what is bound in heaven. And that key opens the gate. Because Jesus stands at the door and he knocks. He's coming home. He's returned from his long journey. And he's going to come back to the earth and find out what we have done while he's been gone. He set us in charge. He gave us talents, and he wants to know what we've been doing with those talents. And did we, and of course we're virgins waiting for our master return for the wedding. The wedding is in the summer. We're going to have a great big wedding at the Pentecost. We're going to enjoy the bountiful fruits of summer. And we're going to use that bull to plow our field. We're going to tame that wild bull. Put a plow on it. Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. During the 1,000 years, many of those who are asleep in the earth will awake. They'll wake up. They'll begin to learn. But the first fruits comes first. We're now approaching the end of the time for you to wake up to be one of the first fruits. To be one of the 144,000 who will sit on thrones and reign upon the earth with Christ. And then we will be kings and priests to help the rest of the world begin to wake up during the 1,000 years. And all the way around. But you see, when he returns, he's coming from the past. He's coming from the deep recesses of our spiritual, our memories, the things that we've done in the very, very past. All that we are, from the central core of the galaxy. But like everything in the universe, when you have cells, a man and a woman, they come together and then they become one, and through that union they give birth. They make a whole new kingdom, another duplicate image of themselves. So the universe works that way. There are star systems, and every star system comes from a nova, and they come out and they have a male and a female star. They're binary. Every star has a binary makeup. And then they have children. They have planets. And time goes on. And then their suns eventually explode into a nova. And more stars are made, or smaller stars, infant stars are born. And this happens outside of the center of the galaxy, towards the outer edges, and then one day, towards the extremity, the outer edges of the galaxy, we go out like someone who leaves his father and his mother and sticks unto his wife, and they become another family, and they raise their own family. So Christ is coming back to get his bride. And during the 1,000 years, we're going to prosper and succeed. And there will be a lot of travel, space travel. We'll explore areas further out towards the pole star. We'll go to Vega. We'll colonize other places. That's how this works. There's 7.4 billion people on this earth right now. We've been growing, and many of them are young souls. It's just like certain people that have been born into this generation. They will succeed. And the great phoenix bird, which is that great ship, remember the city of Enoch was taken up off the earth. That's the phoenix. That's the great city of the grand king. Pretty for situation. The glory of all the earth. It talks about it coming down out of heaven in the book of Revelation. It gives us dimensions. It's huge. It's almost the size of the moon. It's like another planet. A city planet. And in Sumerian tablets, it talks about Nibiru, or the planet of the crossing, and it shows a picture of it with wings. It's not an ordinary planet. It's a planet that has wings. It can go, it has control of where it goes. It's coming back through the Stargate. Because you see, Jesus left a certain way. He went down a certain corridor to go save his bride. In the recesses of the past, of the ancient memories, to change things that had happened in our psyches, to free us up so that we can grow spiritually and be born again and revitalize our lives and wake up. And when he goes there and he finds the 7 churches, it says there's only 2 that are faithful. The others, it's not time. They're not able to wake up. So he's only bringing back 2. And those are the 144,000. And that's the city of Enoch, the city of the grand king. They come on a grand ship. Jesus says, I'm coming back with the saints. They shall be with him. The saints are all those people that went down into that area after death. Where do you think you go? Well, for some that overcome, evidently, we go to this great mothership that's called the Phoenix. Someone remember how when we landed on the moon, we said the eagle has landed. Well, the Phoenix and the eagle is the same basic symbol. There's going to be a war in heaven at the last judgment coming very soon. It's happening now. And the eagle's going to kill the serpent or the great dragon. You ever seen the movie Star Wars? You got the Klingons, or the Star Trek movie. You got the Federation of Planets, and you got the Klingons, and they've got their own Romulan Federation or something like this. I don't know. And they all look kind of satanic, and they got weird little horns on their head. Well, you see, there's the dark side and there's the good side. There's a federation of beings that are very, very wicked. And they've got 1/3 of the angels of heaven. They control the ego. They're warriors. And there's going to be a battle. Now, in the book of Revelation, you see a star that had fallen from heaven, like a big mountain that falls into the sea. And elsewhere it says that's when Satan comes to the earth and has a short time. I believe we'll see that. I don't think that the planet Nibiru, or the planet of the crossing, is an actual planet. It's like a wandering comet that comes flying through, that somehow somebody's calculated the exact date it's going to hit and we're all going to die. No. That would be too ridiculous. It takes so long at a certain speed for them to go from this planet all the way out to the Pleiades and then return with the bride. And when he comes back, that dragon's going to be waiting for him. And there's going to be a battle above us. In a war in heaven. And you will see when the dragon is defeated, he'll be thrown down to the earth. Or he'll come down to the earth with his tail tucked between his legs to wage the last war, the last battle. And Christ will land upon the earth and come down the way he left from the clouds. In that great city. And he'll bring with him the 144,000. They'll all be on horses. Well, that's a symbol of this battle, this spiritual battle that's going to be waged. And I believe it'll be waged in a spiritual way in people's minds. But we will see when Satan falls to the earth. That date will be known. And the waters, which is the emotions, are going to be turned into blood and chaotic. People's hearts are going to be fearful and deranged. They're going to be full of fear. Those who know that the things that they've done and they just can't forgive themselves and they don't want to love, they'll choose their sides. Christ is coming back on a great mothership. He's got the key. He's conquered the enemy. He's coming in the direction of Sirius through the Stargate Orion. And he's got the key. And because of what he did, in the time that he spent, I think it probably took him 2,000 years to go down there and back. There were things he had to do. I think it has something to do with CERN. I think it has something to do with the president and John Trump, his older brother. Because Tesla was getting information from Aldebaran. And there were those that were in the Fool Society in Germany that was getting information from Aldebaran. You can read about this. We don't have time to get into this now. But Hitler had some young women that were trained as psychic, and they kept them in a room and gave them everything they needed. They were free from all the pollution of this evil world, and they trained them in the greatest psychic techniques. And they were getting information about how to build ships and buildings. But most of that information was going to Tesla. Not from there, but I mean, Tesla was also getting greater information. And they had to get that information. That's why Tesla was held up in the New Yorker. And just at the end of the war, he ended up dying. And I think they probably got the information they wanted from him. John Trump took that information and only gave some of it to the government. I think that some of that information is being used right now. But as we said, Elon Musk is sending out satellites into the air and missiles. And his stated goal is to colonize the planets and the stars. We're entering into a new age of exploration. Just as Star Trek, to go where no man has gone before. You don't believe? Well, our Father in heaven told Abraham, go and conquer the land. All the way around, 360 degrees, I'll give you all the land. So the outer part of the universe, see, we've evolved all this way from the center of the galaxy, all the way out from the Pleiades, all the way up to this place now where we're here on Earth. And over the next 1,000 years, we're going to be using Earth now as the base. That ship is going to land. The New Jerusalem is going to land here on the North American continent. I believe that. I believe that's what the Bible teaches. I believe that's what Joseph Smith was talking about. And we're all going to witness that New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. We're all going to witness Christ literally come down as you saw him go from the clouds. And the saints were with him. The city of Enoch, the phoenix. But before that phoenix lands, he's going to have to conquer the dragon. And I think that's a little bit like in Star Trek, you see the Klingon ships and stuff like that. I think there will be a real battle. And I think when it says that the mountain that falls from the sky, you remember Jesus said when he healed people and cured the sick, he said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. Because Satan, he's got a ship too. The Sumerian tablets talks about this. They had a base on Mars, they had a base on the moon, and I think they've set up shop here on the moon and probably a base on Antarctica. And when Christ comes in his great phoenix bird, the great city of the Grand King, the mothership, he's come to evict them. And there will be a battle above the earth. We'll all witness it. It's coming soon, very, very soon, friends. And we'll all see it. Every eye shall see it. Every eye shall see it. And we'll all see eye to eye when he brings back Zion. And it shall come down out of the sky and land on the earth. Crying shall be no more. And tears shall be no more. Pain, heartache. And the earth will be transformed. War will be no more. We'll beat our weapons of war into plowshares. And we'll be gardeners and gatherers and lovers and fathers and mothers. We'll love one another. And we respect our elders. And as civilizations want to do, we'll explore other civilizations far and wide. We'll expand to the stars in the outer part of the galaxy. It's just exponential growing. The stars, there's so many of them on the outer part of the galaxy. There's just billions and billions of other planets that are habitable. Many of them haven't even been seen any human or humanoid type of life. I think probably from here we go to Vega and set up a base there. But for the next 1,000 years, there will be a base here on Earth of exploration in this particular part of the galaxy. So anyway, friends, I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow. I know there's probably a lot of questions in your guys' mind at this point. It's hard to just start jumping into something like this, story like this, and a lot of you are probably thinking, what? And I think you've gone too far, Dave. Oh, well, we'll see, because we're gonna get into some more information and show you some verses and some scriptures, and we're going to talk about this over the next few days, years. You know, there's so much that we're going to cover over the next, I don't know how many videos. You know, we've got to try to understand all of this. But, you know, it's like with everything, it's like people say to me, well, I can't believe that you believe in a divine mother, David. I mean, now I can go for the divine Father of heaven and the Son. The Father and the Son, right? There's this Holy Trinity, and they're all persons. You got the Father and you got the Son, but now you've gone too far when you're talking about a mother. You got the Holy Father, you got the Holy Son, but you can't have a Holy Mother. You're just gone too far there. And it's the same thing with this. I mean, how many times do we have to read a scripture when Jesus says, I'm going to come in the like way, in the same manner in which I left this earth into the clouds, I'm going to return, and I'm going to bring the saints with me. We're all going to be riding horses, Dave. Now, what are you talking about? It's not going to be a ship. It's going to be horses. It says right there in the Bible. Right? There's a fiery chariot. Now, you know that's what it says. And you can't just make stuff up, Dave. Well, you know, we're not making stuff up. What we're trying to do is read the Bible for what it says and put it all together. Figure out what it means. If Jesus is coming out of the sky, where's he been for 2,000 years? Gallivanting around up on a cloud? You know, picking raindrops? You know, what's he been doing up there? Where'd he go? Well, the ancient scriptures tell us where he went. He had the key to hell. And there's a reason he has a key. He had to conquer death. The recesses of our ancestral lives that we've lived in the past, going all the way back to the center of the galaxy towards the Pleiades. That's the church. There's a lot more to this than what we've been able to understand. This is just a Reader's Digest version. There's a real purpose and plan that our Father has. And it includes exploring the whole universe and advancing, partaking of great knowledge to become like God. Our future is brilliant. Our president, he's along with his administration and all the saints on earth, we're going to conquer this evil plot to take over our world and destroy us. And people like Elon Musk are working right now. And they're working with the president, and they're creating the Space Force. We're going to go forward and advance. And the glories that are going to be revealed in us, you can't even imagine. What do you think those glories are going to be like? We're going to go to places in the actual physical universe, my friends. You know, when you see a beautiful flower, the first word that comes to my mind is glory. Glory to God. Oh man, that's beautiful. And the beautiful brook coming down over the hill, falling down over the rocks. and the sunlight glistening, and little deer drinking from the brook. That is the glory of God, the creation, and it expands throughout the universe, and we haven't seen one drop in a bucket of it yet. So come on, boys, all on board. You better get on the train, because if you're gonna wait around and go backwards and fight and war with one another, you're not going to get ready. You're not going to be ready with your lamps to go with the bride. He's going to take us to a new mansion in the sky, and it's going to be beautiful. And eventually everyone will partake of these glories, each in his own rank. So anyway, we'll get back into this tomorrow. We're just getting started with all of this information and our search for knowledge and truth, and it's going to be great. So see you tomorrow. Have a good one.